Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to see that we have a few folks here with us. We're here with Mark Maloney. Did I pronounce that correct?
Close enough. You can call me
Okay.
Mark Smith if you need to.
Mark is with Natural Born Coaches. He is the coach's coach. He's going to be presenting to us on Action Creates Confidence. Mark is a very intelligent, passionate, sought-out coaching person that you definitely want to listen to, soak it all in, and connect with. So, Mark, I'm going to give way to you. And as you're going, I may jump in and ask questions, or we may even bring some of the guests in to ask questions. So
well, that's great because I'm extremely informal tonight. I don't have any sort of planned presentation or anything, so it's pretty much off the cuff. But those are the best type of conversations, I find. We don't want too scripted, so. Yeah. I love the theme Action Creates Confidence because I'm always preaching action and how important it is. And I think it was Pablo Picasso had a quote, action is the foundational key of all success. And that's one that's always been kind of one of my favorite quotes that are out there. It's the only quote I know of Pablo Picasso's, but it has to do with action. So. And then, of course, Les Brown has that quote, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. And that goes in the same tune as well. So what I'm seeing every day, talking with a lot of coaches, that's my world doing this podcast back here, is that the big thing holding people up is just, they're not taking action. They're trying to prepare a lot because they want to make sure that they're doing everything right. But then that ends up creating a lot of confusion and frustration, or they're starting to do action, but they don't get results after some action. And then after a week or two, it sort of drops off. And we're seeing that in life in general. Here we are, end of January. We're about a month into the new year and the gyms are already starting to empty out, right? Compared to the New Year's rush. So if there's one trait that I think all entrepreneurs should have would be action. I mean, obviously there's others like persistence, but I think action's definitely right up there.
Mm-hmm. So with new coaches, because I know I just struggle with that also, what period would you say of preparation is, I don't know, I'm going to find the right word. What period of preparation should be expected before you say, that's it, I'm jumping in?
15 minutes or so. I'm just kidding. But it shouldn't be 15 months either, or 15 years. And some people I've talked to said, I've always thought about becoming a coach since 2004. And I'm thinking, what the heck, 12 years to prepare for this. There's a happy medium. I mean, I'll give you my example with coaching. My background's in real estate, and I'd had a real estate company and stuff. So I was kind of coaching without calling myself a coach with people that I had on my team and stuff. But when I actually decided that I was going to become a quote coach and do it as a business, I would say there was a period of possibly a month where I just dove in and researched online and did as much as I could. And then I started taking some things. There were some group coaching programs I started learning and stuff, but to actually make the jump, it was, I just kind of jumped right in. And that's the way I've always been. I'm kind of leap first, I don't look too closely. I just jump. And what I've heard before about entrepreneurs, a lot of them are the type that jump off a cliff and then they hope they can build a plane on the way down and before they go splat in the bottom. And that's kind of me. So I'm not saying that you jump in with a 10-minute kind of thought that, okay, I'm going to become a coach, but definitely you shouldn't take any more than, I think, a few weeks kind of gathering your information and before taking concrete steps if you know you want to do it.
So at least with me, I feel like the whole question about to niche or not to niche, do you think that's a barrier to just taking action?
It is. A lot of coaches get overwhelmed because they're trying to pick that perfect, I'll use the Canadian pronunciation, niche. We sound so civilized up here. Niche, it's the same thing, tomato. But a lot of coaches get really flustered because they're trying to pick this perfect niche. And then they think that they're going to be tied to that niche for the rest of their coaching career and the rest of their life. And it's not that way at all. The perfect example I like to use with that is Gary Vaynerchuk. Most people have seen something of Gary Vaynerchuk's where he's all over the internet. And when he got started years ago, he got started with Wine Library TV. You know, he was doing wine videos online, and he was doing really kind of crazy, zany ones. Like some of them were showing which children's cereals go best with which wine. So Captain Crunch goes best with this, and, you know, Lucky Charms goes with this. And Gary Vaynerchuk got started in a pretty tight niche at the time. Online discussion about wine wasn't like it was today. But as time went on, he got traffic in that world and in that niche. And then he was able to expand out, and he wrote Crush It, of course, and that exposed him to a lot of people. And then he expanded to a more general social media message. And now he's talking about, well, he's always talked about buying the New York Jets. That's his big goal in life. You know, so he's all over the place. But he started with a very tight focus on wine, and then he expanded out. So I always say it's good to go in there, get some traction. Then if you want to go in different directions, you can do that. You know, you're hopefully going to live to 80, 90, 100 years old would be nice. So you got lots of years you can do different things.
So for you personally, how many changes have you had since you started coaching as far as your niche or your ideal client or
one
your branding?
Yeah.
Just one?
Yeah, I'm in my third year of coaching. So when I first started coaching, beginning of 2014, I want to work with any entrepreneur. So how's that for a nice tight focus? You know, I said, I'll work with any entrepreneur out there. And then I realized pretty quickly that wasn't the best plan of attack. So the problem I had was I was working with some bricks and mortar businesses and working with a wide mix of people, not as many clients as I would have liked because I was too spread out in those early months. And I realized I had to narrow my focus. So I looked at who I was working with, and I had people that were more traditional businesses. They were entrepreneurs. And then I had a couple coaches that I was helping. And when I looked at the two of them, I really got energized for the calls with coaches were the ones that I got really excited. I loved working with the marketing. I loved helping them set up the programs. I loved just everything with that. And then the other ones were kind of blah. I wasn't hopping out of bed excited to do those ones. So it was an easy call for me. And it was after that I launched a podcast, and then that got me into contact with more coaches and into that world. So I made one change, but I've heard coaches make, plenty. I've had some coaches that on the show that have been in it 10 years and they've changed 5 times. Sometimes something just, they do it for a couple of years and then they decide they're going to go another direction because their heart's telling them to go that way. And that's a nice thing with our businesses. You can do that pretty quickly.
Yeah. So do you feel like the brick and mortar, how do you take the message of just take action and apply that to them? Because do you still have any of those clients that cross your path that are more brick and mortar?
No, I don't. And I don't do a lot even local. So I'm in Eastern Canada. I'm in a relatively small province. I'm in New Brunswick. So we're pretty comparable to Maine in the United States. We border Maine, so we're neighbors. And we've got slightly smaller population than Maine, but there's a lot of similarities. And I've had a few clients here in my home city, but they've come to me more by accident. It's not that I'm going out there and advertising for those clients and doing trade shows. People up in my neck of the woods, when I mentioned that I was going to become a coach, they thought I was going to go try to get a job with the Lakers or the Dallas Cowboys or something. They didn't get it.
Local football team.
Yeah, I still have trouble if I'm at a summer barbecue. They say, "So what do you do?" Because in my area, it's very traditional. So they want to know, are you in real estate? Do you do mortgages? Are you insurance? Do you work at the bank? Are you a dentist? Are you a lawyer? That's what they think of. So when you say a coach, it's getting better. More people understand now what coaching is, but it's still not huge here. So the few clients that I've had locally have come to me more by accident. But even then, I'm coaching them virtually by Skype, just like we're chatting here now. I'm not a type of coach that likes to meet at Starbucks and when you have somebody 2 feet away from you and they can hear everything. I like coaching virtually. It works for me and it works for my clients.
Okay. So that was my next question as far as taking action and confidence, because I know you do the podcasting and that's more, you don't have the video visibility. Do you feel like podcasting is a tool for coaches who are not quite up to video in their confidence to take that next action?
It's funny. I find a lot of people jump into podcasting and get just as nervous, even though there's no video there. They hate their voice. Wow. So I never realized how much people hate their voice. And when I first listened to my podcast, when I first started doing it back in November 2014 is when it launched. When I first launched my podcast, I thought, oh, I don't like my voice either, but it is what it is.
Really?
So
Wow.
people are really, at first, I find a little bit nervous and timid, but then once they do enough shows, they're fine. So as of today, I've done 369 have been released, so we're approaching number 400 in March.
400.
So yeah, now I've gotten over not liking my voice, and I do it a lot of those shows, but it usually takes probably 20 or 30 shows to when you get your feet under you and you start to get really comfortable.
Okay. So when did you actually start doing video? When did you make the switch, or not the switch, but the addition from podcasting to including video?
Well, I did some videos in 2014 when I launched my coaching business early that year and throughout 2015, but it wasn't really consistent. So you're on my social media. We're connected on Facebook and some of the other places. You may have noticed that I'm doing more video this year. So 2016, I've been shooting not quite a video a day, but most weeks I'm doing 4 or 5 videos. So I've been much more active with video. And you've heard all the stats, what they're talking about, especially with Facebook. Videos are becoming big and they're becoming huge. You've seen how much more effective they are compared to, it's kind of like text without an image. That's almost the worst now on Facebook. You throw an image, you do better, but then video, especially those shorter videos, people want to see who it is rather than just text. So I do think the video is important. That being said, I'm not the type of person that's doing 5 videos a day or whatever, but I do like to do 4 or 5 a week just to stay active with it. And most of them are 3-minute videos. They're not long.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So do you have any step-by-step instructions or suggestions for people who are really just getting started? Like, this is what you need to do to start to take action.
One of the things that's big is connecting with people who've done it. I think rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, there's people who've already done what you want to do. So part of the reason I launched a podcast is I spent time before I started a podcast reaching out to coaches and picking their brain and just getting their advice or feedback. And they were all very helpful, very open. And I got lots of great ideas. So that's how I knew a daily podcast would work for coaches. Some people said, oh, you'll never get enough guests for the show. You won't be able to get 300 some guests a year. And I knew that I'd be able to get it because the coaches I reached out to were all very gracious with their time and they connected and they were very helpful. So that would be the first step is first of all, you got to decide what it is you want to do. So you got to put your research hat on a little bit. I'll give a resource that I find is really helpful for myself and for clients I work with, and that's similarweb.com is the website. So if you go to similarweb.com and you punch in anybody's website, assuming that it's indexed, you'll get a whole bunch of statistics. You'll see how many hits are going, visits on that website every day. Yep, you'll get the bounce rate. You'll see where the traffic's coming from. Are they getting their traffic from YouTube ads, Facebook ads, or Google search? Where's it coming from? But then at the very bottom, you also get a list of similar websites. So there's people that you wouldn't have even heard of that would be similar to that person. So if you're interested in being a blank coach, for example, then you find the top dog in that niche. And then you can do a search through similarweb.com and then look and see what other people are there. And then I recommend sign up for their newsletters, their email list. If you have to, start a different email account because your inbox is going to get flooded if you're signing up for a lot. So you can set up, I have markoptin@gmail.com. That's what I use if I want to check out different email lists and freebies and stuff. So sign up for some of those people's lists, see how they're talking to their people, see what they're giving away for the free resource as a lead magnet when you sign up, and just get a sense for how they're doing it. And if you look at the top 5 people, I'm not saying that you want to copy those people, but you can definitely model some things that they're doing, then that's a great start because someone's already done what you want to do. And like I said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right. That's something that I'm actually huge on teaching as far as reinventing the wheel. Oh, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Because really, I truly believe there's nothing new under the sun. And so there's no point in trying to recreate what you don't have to. It's more about adding your personal touch, your own personality.
Yeah, exactly. So when I started podcasting, I took a group coaching program with John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire. And I've gotten to know John and his partner, Kate, and they've been on my show and they've been great. So I went to somebody who was doing what I want to do, and John's one of the best out there. And I joined his community and learned from how he was doing it. And that was a great way to do it. So you can always find somebody that's doing what you want to do, and then even reach out to them. You'd be surprised how helpful they could be, and then learn how they're doing it rather than trying to figure it out all out yourself. Don't be a lone wolf and try to figure it out, because it's something that could take just a few months to get going, might take a few years if you're trying to figure it all out yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think the coaching community, at least I have found, is when they say, you find your vibe attracts your tribe. The coaching community was like finding my tribe, like finally, aha. These are the most supportive, encouraging, loving people. And it's across the board, no matter what their niche is, no matter what their industry is. They have all been so fabulous when it comes to support and help and asking questions. Yeah. For people who get paid for what they do, they actually pour out, just like this via the labs and the podcast, so much love and information that I think anyone could start in this field and make a half decent success out of it.
Yeah. Well, I come from a real estate background, and in real estate, they say the nice ones stab you in the front. So coaching's a lot different. So real estate's very much a dog eat dog. There's a pie that's a certain size, and if Jennifer gets a piece of that pie with a sale, then that's taking pie that could have been mine if I'm in real estate in this local market or whatever. And coaching isn't that way. So if Jennifer gets a client, I'm not sitting up here in Canada throwing darts at a picture of Jennifer saying she took food off my table. I'm thinking, good for her. It's a different vibe to it. They're much more collaborative and open and sharing. And I think that goes to coaches are amazing in terms of reading personal development material, consuming videos, or soaking in all this positive material. And they wouldn't be coaching if they didn't want to help people, because the ones that are in it just for money generally don't last long if they're in to make a quick buck. So coaches by nature are helpful. Now that can get coaches in trouble too, because if you go too far and try to help people but not get paid like you should, where it's a business, then you're not going to be in business very long. So the best coaches I find are able to combine that good, helpful spirit, and collaborate and all that, but also be paid what they're worth, which is very important too. So it's definitely a mix or a blend there.
I know that's a sticking area for you, coaches getting paid what they're worth.
Yeah, I'm banging that drum all the time.
Yeah. How do you coach new coaches around that in the just getting started area? Because I know a lot of people have huge conflicts with pricing and getting started. Because as a newbie, you feel like, who am I to request this fee? So how do you get them to just get started when they have those conflicts in pricing?
I get them to set a price that's high enough and then stick to it, which sounds terribly simple. I think we make it too difficult. So a coach says, but what do I do if so-and-so won't pay X amount of dollars? I say, then you don't work with them. You move on to the next one. You've got 7.5 billion people roughly in the world. You don't need many of them to have a successful coaching business. So don't chase after somebody that wants to pay peanuts and not pay you what you're worth. Now, that being said, if you're a brand new coach, if you go out there and you say, okay, I'm going to charge $100,000 for someone to work with me per year, then that's probably not going to line up with things. You're not going to feel good about that and feel confident. So it goes to a certain point where, I'm exaggerating, but it's got to work out right. So I had a client today who's a newer coach. I started working with her a few weeks ago, and she got her first client since we've been working together. And she came down a little bit on her fee, not much. She still did pretty good. So her fees were still much higher than where she was at when we started working together a few weeks ago. And she said, Mark, I did come down a little bit on the fee because this number just felt right. And I said, well, hey, look, at the end of the day, it's your business. A coach that I had before always said with our coaching business, it's your sandcastle, so you can build it like you want. So I said, whatever you're comfortable with. And I wasn't too upset because she was still getting paid a good fee. It's not like she said, oh, I'm going to work with this person for a few dollars or something. What I hate to see is coaches that are charging, which I've actually seen coaches that are charging for a 6-month one-on-one package, something like $1,000 for 6 months. So they're getting paid, less than $200 a month for one-on-one. And you know how much work goes into one-on-one. Or a coach a few months back, I heard that was doing a 6-week coaching program and charging just $47. That's for the whole 6 weeks. So she's getting paid less than $8 a person per call, which obviously is way too low. And she was having trouble filling it. And the reason why is any person would look at it and say, if she's charging $47 for a 6-week coaching program, then she can't be very good. So that's the problem in that regard. If you price yourself too low, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot in a couple different ways.
So how do you feel about, because I know this is newer and it's something that we do also, how do you feel about membership for coaches?
Membership sites?
Yes, because I see it's a more popular thing that's starting to pop up.
Yeah, I like membership sites, but the asterisks I'll put on there is I see a lot of coaches when they first get started want to start a membership site and get thousands of people into it, which I think, well, it'll be easy if I'm charging $20 a month or so. And then they're using the calculator to total up the big numbers. And that's a lot of work to build a membership site that's that big. I'm more of a fan of first getting traction with one-on-one clients and smaller group programs. So if you're saying, okay, I want to work with 5 one-on-one clients at a time, and then I want to have group programs for people who can't budget my one-on-one, and a group program of 5 people, right there, you've got a very good source of revenue coming in from those 2 sources. Then you can get into, say, online programs, membership sites, all the other things that you want to do. I just think that the path to revenue is a lot quicker getting some one-on-one or group people. So, for example, if you're charging $1,000 a month for your one-on-one services, I think it's easier to get one client at $1,000 than trying to get 100 clients at $10 or whatever, the smaller unit, I think it's much easier that way. So I like membership sites, but I think you can really get bogged down too with them because they are a lot of work to get them set up and then to sell them. Sometimes it's harder to make a $20 sale than a $500 or $1,000 coaching sale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in your practice, who are the coaches that you work with? What niche of coaches do you work with the most? Who do you help get started? It's
a wide range. I mean, right now I look at who I've got for one-on-one. I've got a health coach, and I'm not a health guy. And I have a twin brother that's a gym nut. He's in the gym all the time.
Oh,
Me,
cool.
I'm not. Me, I'm not. Not so.
You guys are the yin and yang.
Yeah, that's right. It's like twins. He's remember the movie Twins? He's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm Danny DeVito. So I've got a health coach that's in Tennessee that I'm working with. She's great. And Bria Pittman. So I'll put a shout out for Bria. I've got a coach in Canada who's a habits coach. She's really big on people getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning because it transformed her life literally 3 or 4 years ago. So she does that. I've got some great coaches in my group program. So I've got a coach in the UK who's a men's coach. He's coaching men in their 30s and 40s who are battling depression and just trying to get traction in their life. And it's a broad range of niches. It's not like I'm working with just one type of coach. It's split pretty close 50-50 male and female. But the interesting thing where I work with coaches is it's really the same thing to build a business, even if you've got coaches who are in different types of coaching. At the end of the day, a lot of the principles are same with building a coaching business. So you can apply a lot of the same things right across the board.
Mm-hmm. So once they get started, they're reading books, they're following similar people, they're researching, they're reaching out for help. Where do you advise them to start in their social media? Like, where do you tell them, this is where you need to start announcing yourself. This is where you need to start offering yourself. How do they get started in that area?
Well, the first step, a lot of people go backwards. They don't know who they're targeting. And then they're like a bull in a china shop and they start vomiting all over social media. And not the best way to do it. I think you got to get a little bit more clarity on who you're targeting. Although it's never going to be completely set. Things could change a little bit as you get doing it for a few months. You notice that you're attracting a certain type of person, so you can tweak it and stuff. But I think that you really have to decide who you're going to target. And you can't just say, I'm going to work with entrepreneurs, or like I made that mistake, or I'm going to be a coach for women. The mistake that a lot of coaches make is they try to be everything to everyone. So they say, I'm going to solve people's, I'm going to help them with their financial life and their physical and their relationships and their spiritual. And I'm going to do everything other than wash their car on Saturdays for them. I'm going to cover everything for them. And then they don't get anything there. So it's much better to focus on one certain thing. So if you say you want to work with women, well, what are you working with women for exactly? It's got to be something a little bit more tight that's in there. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question about social media, you don't want to wait a year to jump out and do all these things on social media, but you do have to do a little bit of time with a bit of research to decide who you're going to target. And then I'm a big fan, as you know, with me, I'm a big Facebook guy. So I'm on LinkedIn and I have a lot of followers on Twitter and I do stuff there, but the majority of my business from social media comes from Facebook. So I'm a really big fan of Facebook groups, getting into groups. I know you're a big fan of those as well. And the first couple of years I picked 3 to 5 groups that had my target clients in there, coaches that want to grow their business. And I was very active in those groups, just providing as much value as I could. I know that sounds really corny, but that's, how I did it. And then people started reaching out to me. And then it was a little bit later on, I started my own Facebook group, the Coaching Jungle, which you're a member of. Thank you.
I love that group.
Yeah. So it's 4 months old. We're up close to 1,000 members have joined and it's going gangbusters. So once I got my feet wet in groups and got a fair bit of business from those groups and was doing well, then I said, I'm going to focus my efforts really into one main group that I'm the admin for. And, I can be the dictator and set the rules now. I'm just kidding. I'm not like a dictator. So yeah, definitely get into Facebook groups and poke around and get a feel for the group, but don't join 100 groups or it's going to be way too noisy trying to keep up with all of it. Just stick to a couple groups with a good number of people. And that's a great start.
Mm-hmm. I actually I have a marketing calendar that I suggest for new coaches who are ambitious about joining more than one group.
Yes.
And it has a link to about, I don't know, probably 40 different groups. There's like 5, 10, 20 groups on each day of that calendar. But without that, it would be insane. There'd be no way that I would could keep up with it. Go ahead.
You want groups that you're free to post. You don't want a group that's got an admin that's trying to control everything and won't let you post. So you don't want to go in there and spam it, just sell, like a lot of people do. They join a group and then 2 seconds later, they're just spamming it. You want to be in there for a while and answer different posts that are in there and just provide value and just be you, be real. And then you'll find people will start to connect with you that way. But I was only ever that was really active in 3 to 5 groups before I launched a Coaching Jungle group. Now I've pulled back from there. Yeah. I'm in more groups. I get people adding me to groups if it's a yard sale in San Francisco or something like that. They're adding me to events and groups and stuff like that. But that's another thing. Please don't add people to groups without their permission. It really pisses them off.
It's really sad that Facebook has not yet come up with the invite option.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get, if it's someone I know and I know that it's a good group and it's personal development stuff, I'm not going to flip out at them and say anything, but it does get a little frustrating when I get people adding me to groups that I have no interest in. It just doesn't fit what I'm doing. I think you're better off starting the group and then build it the right way. You can mention it on your personal wall and you can actually invite people, message them and tell them about it, and then it'll grow organically. So with the Coaching Jungle, I put it out on my wall, and the first day or two, we had maybe 150 people. It was real busy. But from there, it's all grown from people just finding it and joining, or people on different theme days. One of our theme days is growing the jungle. So people are adding people that they think would be good. But I haven't been just throwing people into that group. I'm letting them come to the group, because I'd rather have a group of, say, 1,000 right now after a few months than 10,000 but most of them don't want to be in there. That's no good. It's going to be a pain in the butt to admin as well.
As far as giving value, I really do think when it comes to action creating confidence, I think groups are a great practice ground, because as long as you're giving value, you're putting something out every day. You're getting into that practice of sharing yourself and sharing your message.
Yeah.
And when you do that consistently and people respond to it, that does build up your confidence.
And the more you do it, your voice will come through too. So in the beginning, it may be a little bit stilted. It may not be quite you, but then as you open up a bit, more and more of you will get shared, and you'll become more authentic, and you'll start to attract more people that way. And I found since I've been doing more content, I'm like a content creation machine. That's not to brag at all, because I'm not special. It's just I'm doing it so often that I'm picking up on things. So I see something that I read online, or somewhere I see something, and then I can apply it to help my community. So I jot it down in a little tiny notebook so I don't forget. You could use Evernote on your phone or whatever. And then I have a folder on my computer. So I create a bunch of little, I call them value nuggets. That's a couple paragraph thing that you're posting on social media, such as Facebook. And I have a folder for nuggets not yet posted. So when I go in the daytime, like I got to post something to my group, I can go in that folder, clean it up a little bit, whatever doc, and then I'm putting in the group. So the worst thing you can do is if you have a blank screen and then you think I got to post something every day, and you see the blank screen with the cursor blinking, that's not a good position to be in. But if you got 10 or 15 ideas there that you can draw from in your folder, makes it a lot easier. You got the work already done. So if you can get into a flow one afternoon, you get your phone off, maybe it's a weekend, you could get a bunch of those posts all written out, and then you can add them as they're needed, in the future days or weeks.
Mm-hmm. That's something I'm an avid believer in. Before I left my 9 to 5, being in a clerical office and doing a lot of data entry, I was always able to listen to music or listen to books on tape. And now I don't know how much work I got done before I actually made the jump. Yeah. Because every time something resonated with me, I would stop and write it down in my notebook. And by the end of the week, when I set up my buffer or my Hootsuite, there it was all lined up. Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely believe in jotting down your inspirations with whatever you're reading and listening to, so that you can turn that into content to take action with later. It makes a huge difference.
Oh, definitely.
So I want to open it up real quick. I see we have a couple of guests. Does anyone want to hop in and ask any questions or have any comments? There should be a call-in button or an open seat button that you can click on if you'd like to. I know I only can see the screen as a host at this point, but if anyone does see the call-in button or the open seat button and has any questions, feel free to jump in.
Well, we're all done. Good night, everyone.
So I wanted to ask, what's your favorite action? Because I think everyone has that thing that that's what they really like to do. Like I put out, text and videos and pictures, and we do things like the blabs and the podcast, but what's your favorite thing?
Oh, that's a good question, because I have a couple favorite things. It's not, there's one thing instead. I'm a writer. I really enjoy writing. So when I can get in the flow writing, I can really get going. But since I started podcasting, I really enjoy podcasting. So I'm really energized. Earlier today, I recorded a bunch of podcast interviews, because Tuesdays are my busy day where I batch interviews. And it doesn't even feel like work. I'm just flying. Tuesday nights, it's hard to get to sleep because I've been doing podcast interviews for a good chunk of the day. So I like hosting interviews, and then I like doing things like this where I'm going on Blabs and going on Google Hangouts and all that fun stuff too. For me, at the end of the day, the favorite thing though is coaching. When I get done coaching sessions, that's the best energy drink you could ever have. To be on a coaching session, you're just pumped up, you're energized. And especially with the coaches that I'm working with, a lot of them are the newer coaches. They're not jaded or cynical, and they're very open-minded and eager and motivated, or I wouldn't have chosen to work with them. And it's a lot of fun to work with those type of coaches. So I would say coaching would definitely be the top of it, and then followed by things like podcasts and interviews and writing. I love writing.
So I think it was you that I saw a video that you did that said that when you're feeling inspired, one of the ways that you get a lot of action out of the way in a compact amount of time is that you do more than one video during a session. Was that you that said that? You'll just switch shirts and then jump right back on. And, yeah.
I change shirts really quickly and then stay in the groove. So it's a little easier for us guys. It's not like women that have to change a lot of things, earrings and other stuff. But
right.
If you have a chance, you can record quite a few videos, especially if you're not getting too crazy. Don't create a script and have a teleprompter there to do your videos, because it's not going to be as good of a video. So it's better to do it off the cuff. Sometimes I'll re-record a video if I flub up something or there's something I want to mention, but it's rare that I'm doing more than 2 takes or 3 takes, because you drive yourself crazy that way. You spend all day. So if you're doing just 1 or 2 takes for every video, you could do a couple videos an hour pretty easily and then get them uploaded or ready to roll for when you're going to post them. And I'm really huge on that. Whatever you're doing, if you can get into a state of flow, there's an awesome book, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Try saying that 10 times fast. He wrote.
Say that again.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi that's close enough. I probably butchered Mihaly's name. He wrote a book called Flow, and it's an incredible book, and it's all. When humans can get into that state of flow, it doesn't happen all the time, but I'm sure everybody here has been in that state of flow before. When you're in a state of flow, you feel superhuman, like you can do anything. You just feel different. You're just working at 10x of what you'd normally be doing, and time just passes. You don't even notice it. So it's kind of like when you're driving, when you go a couple miles and you forget that you just went a few miles. It's because you're having so much fun. You're in flow and you're just in the groove. And that's where videos or whatever you're doing, it's so important if you can batch them into a certain block of time rather than switching from one thing to another. You can get into a state of flow easier that way.
When you're on autopilot.
Yeah.
That was actually huge. That's why that stood out to me, because I know, just because we're coaches doesn't mean we don't have down days. And I think that can be a block for new coaches too, as far as taking action. And so when you think about that I can do this, this, and this when I'm on a supercharged day, that makes a big difference. I think I've seen some coaches say everything has to be, they don't use things like Hootsuite or Buffer because they feel like it's not authentic. And so it sets them up for a lot of downtime and a lot of lack of action that way.
Yeah. Well, I use Hootsuite. I'm between my 2 Twitter accounts of tweeting about 120 times a day. It's not me tweeting. I wouldn't be able to do 120 tweets a day, even if I was chained to a laptop all day on Twitter. So I'll correct myself. I don't use Hootsuite. My schedule is Meet Edgar. So meetedgar.com, you could go to learn about that. So it's about $50 a month, but it's worth it for the amount of coverage you can get from it. And I still pop in to answer people and to do the personal things. But for me, it's more to share past podcast episodes, quotes, and other things. And I always want to be right in front of people. And I find with Twitter, a few years ago, you could get away with tweeting a few times a day, and that was fine. Now it's just so noisy. It's just, you're going to be lost in the shuffle. If you're tweeting twice a day, you might as well not be tweeting at all. So that's where I like the schedulers. And for me, Meet Edgar's the best that I've used.
So what other tools, because that's a good question for new coaches too. They look at those stats and they see, okay, I need to post how much to be relevant. So what tools do you suggest for them to start taking action so that they don't feel overwhelmed the minute they step in?
Well, social media scheduler is important. So Meet Edgar, like I mentioned, it takes a few hours to set it up in the beginning, but then it's on autopilot. You can add to it as you want. So I spend a minute or 2 a day popping in to add something. Going into other things, an online scheduler for your appointments, that's a must. And you don't have to get in if you're trying to keep your spending low in the beginning. And if you're starting on a shoestring budget like I was when I started coaching, you could even go with a free option. So I use Schedule Once. It's $20 a month roughly, but you can get Calendly or one of the other options. Any coach that doesn't have an online calendar is really missing the boat on something there, because that saves a ton of time. If you don't have an online calendar, you're going back and forth to try to schedule something. And it's like trying to negotiate a Middle East peace treaty nowadays. Everyone's so busy. What about Tuesday at 4? Does that work good? No, it doesn't work good. Can we do Wednesday at 9? No. How about Wednesday at 1? I'll get back to you. How about Friday at 4? I can't do that. And you're going back and forth 30 times. It's a tremendous waste of time and energy. So an online scheduler, I think, is a necessity.
Mm-hmm. What about budget? I heard that you said you started on a shoestring budget. How big of a barrier is budget to someone that's ready to just jump in but feels like they don't have the finances?
It wasn't even a shoestring. It was a dental floss budget when I started. It was smaller than a shoestring. When I started, I had a sales position with a telecommunications company here in Canada, so the pay was good for relative speaking for the area, but it didn't give me a lot of excess money that I could say, I'm going to throw $10,000 to doing this, and this for my business. The thing I love with coaching is it doesn't cost a lot to get started. You can start with some of those free options. So you don't have to go with Meet Edgar for your scheduler for social media. You could go with one of the free or the $10 options. Everything that there is, there's usually a free alternative for it. And then you can upgrade as time goes on. Now, that being said, even now, my budget per month, not including if I have, say, hiring somebody to handle a project that's doing something like a VA, or if I'm doing something with Facebook ads, I'm not including this, but generally I'm at maybe $300 a month. And that's with my podcast, with my schedulers and everything. There's very few businesses that you can run with the income potential of coaching for a couple $100 a month. But I don't have to pay for, it's not like my real estate days. I had 2 offices. One of them was 8,000 square feet. I had all this equipment and all this overhead and employees, and I had employment benefits you had to chip into, and just all this stuff. Coaching is incredible because I can make the same income that I did there with a couple $100 a month. And the rest of it's all my blood, sweat, tears, my effort that I'm putting in. I'm working just as hard as when I was in real estate, but I'm left with a lot more in my pocket at the end of the day compared to is someone that's maybe in a traditional business where they have to pay for expensive office space and they have to pay for all this other stuff, which you don't have to generally with coaching. I know you can rent an office and some people do, but I work right from home, and then I'm for the most part the chief cook and bottle washer, as they say.
That's something that really resonates with me because when I hear people say, a 6-figure coaching business, and then it was going around, well, to have a 6-figure coaching business, every 6-figure coaching business has 6 figures behind it. And it was Quandra Adams, she's a marketing coach, and she really said something that really popped to me. She said, you may not have 6 figures in dollars, but you have 6 figures in energy.
Yeah.
And it's just up to you to decide how to spend that.
Yeah. The field's really leveled compared to in the past. I know coaching wasn't around in its form really in, say, the 80s. I know it started to pop up in the 90s, but in the old days, whatever you're trying to do, take writing, for example. If you want to write for one of the big publications and newspapers, good luck trying to get your foot in the door there. I have a client who's a newer coach. He's been at it since October of 2015. He just got published or online with Huffington Post, which gets
wow.
So I was in entrepreneur.com on their website back in November. If it was past, say, the 80s, and I was trying to get an article printed into the print edition of Entrepreneur, that could be a long time trying to get that done. So with technology, social media, the internet, it's really leveled the field that a newer coach can do a lot in a relatively short period of time. So I'm just starting my 3rd year. And some people say, oh, you've been at it a long time, Mark. They think I've been at it 6 or 8 or 10 years. And I'm like, no, I've been at it relatively short period of time. I'm still in some ways a babe in the woods for only being a couple of years. But I've used social media and marketing and things to really leapfrog a lot of people and expectations too, because I could do that because of technology.
So what do you say to the new coach who says, I'm afraid to get started because the market's so flooded?
I hear that a lot. What's important to realize if you're looking at all the coaches, and I get it, when I went to sit down in my chair, I sat on a coach by mistake, and there's one by my foot here too. There's coaches everywhere, right? You go to get mail at the mailbox and a coach is in the mailbox there. A lot of the coaches, it's like that, Pareto's principle, 80-20, where 20% of the coaches are making 80% of the money that's out there, the revenue, but they've had to work for it. They may not want you to know that they had to work hard for it, but they probably had to work for it. A lot of the people jump out with coaches. As a coach, they're not putting in that big effort. So maybe they get business cards printed up, or they slap up a website or something, but they're not really working at it too hard. So I've heard that with everything I've done. Real estate's a good example. When I got into real estate, I was 21 and I looked about probably 15 or 16 years old, and people said, oh my God, there's too many real estate agents, because there were hundreds and hundreds of agents in my marketplace and you'll starve and all this. And within a few years, I was up at the top just from working my butt off. But I had to work for it too. So if you're willing to work for it, you can leapfrog a lot of those ones that aren't pushing hard with it. Just don't get psyched out by the number of coaches that are out there. You can do a lot in a really short period of time.
So for new coaches, where do you suggest they first get their feet wet? Because I know, like we talked about the pricing, you're not a big fan of coaches giving away services for free.
Right.
But when you say they have to really work for it, where do they work for it when they're just starting and they need to practice, they need to, to craft. So how do you direct them in just getting started that way?
Right. Well, I mean, it's not that you can't do some free coaching, but keep it limited in the beginning. So coming out of the gate, I worked for free for a few, or deeply discounted, but I didn't do it for very long because I started to get frustrated with the effort I was putting in and not getting compensated. So I'm not a fan of some coaching certifications have the go coach 100 people. And I get the logic behind it. You're going to become a better coach is what they think if you're doing that much coaching. I would rather see the coach, instead of doing 100 coaching sessions or working with 100 people that aren't paying you, I'd rather you take the time doing strategy sessions, discovery sessions with qualified clients, people that could pay you what you actually want to be paid. So I'm not saying that you jump out and you charge the equivalent of $10,000 an hour right out of the gate. But even if you're a relatively new coach, you could do well. I have one client who I think she's at $650 a month for one-on-ones, and then she's got a group that's in around $300 a month. That's a good amount of revenue getting started, but it's not something that people can't afford if they want to work with you. It's definitely it's something people can reach. It's not $100,000 to work with you. So you got to find that kind of happy medium. But I think new coaches think it's going to be, they psych themselves out and they think it's going to be too hard to get paying clients. And then it's easier. Well, I'll just offer it for free and offer it to everybody. And then I'll get really good at it. I'll get testimonials and I'll get referrals. And it doesn't really work that way, because the people who are getting free coaching, you've heard this how many times, they don't treat it the same way. Anything you get for free, it just doesn't work that way. It could be, you could be the best coach in the world. If they're not paying for it, they're not going to get the same amount out of it. So I've always said that with coaching, it should have to hurt some for you to hire a coach. I've hired coaches before where it's hurt me, not physically, but almost. When I'm paying them, I'm like, waiting to hit the enter button and PayPal. And I hit it. Yeah. But then I work my butt off too, because I've paid a lot of money for it. So I treat it serious. So I do think it has to hurt to hire a coach. It should have to hurt if you're going to treat it seriously.
So what do you tell coaches who aren't sure of the landscape of coaching? Because there's so many people still in this day and age who, like you said, when you say they're a coach, they want to know what team you're working for. So I think some people hesitate to get started because they don't know where this is going to be in 10, 5, 10, 20 years. Right.
Well, coaches at the end of the day are helping people. So I don't get too worked up on titles. Some people say, am I coaching? Is it more consulting? Am I mentoring or whatever? You're helping people. Who cares? I know that sounds harsh, but people get twisted up like a pretzel trying to say what they're doing. And you should just remember that you're helping people. And there's always going to be a market for helping people, even 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Unless Trump becomes president, then who knows?
And then we're all screwed.
Yeah. Who knows? We might have. No, I shouldn't bash Trump. We might have more Canadians. Some of you will come up this way.
You'll have an influx of neighbors.
Yeah. But it's always going to be in
That's
vogue to help people. And what I will say with Trump and the other entrepreneurs, which I admire, is that they get the point that with entrepreneurs, you should be rewarded for work that you put in too. So I'm teasing for anyone who's on here that's a Trump fan. I like a lot of things about Trump. I don't get involved in American politics. I'm Canadian, but it's always going to be popular to help people. So get into coaching now, and maybe that could transition into God knows what down the road. It'll open a bunch of doors for you. So if someone had said to me when I started coaching in the beginning of 2014 that I'd be having a daily podcast, I'd be like, what? You're nuts. So I'd listened to podcasts since probably 06 or 07, which was relatively early in the coaching or in the podcasting world, but I'd never had a clue how to actually have my own podcast. I just listened to baseball podcasts and business podcasts, and I enjoyed them. When I was mowing the lawn or getting groceries or whatever, I was listening to a podcast, but I never thought I would be podcasting. And that popped up November 2014, where I just jumped in and started doing podcasts. So there's where action comes in again. I didn't overthink it. I just said, you know what? I think podcasting will be good for my business. I'm just going to do it. So overthinking will kill you as well.
Do you see video overtaking podcasting?
Well, it's hard to say because some people probably argue it's already overtaking podcasting, but then other people say, no, well, there's 300,000 podcasts in the world. Podcasting's, bigger than video, and you could have the whole debate, YouTube versus iTunes. I think that they're both going to be important. They're not going anywhere. So podcasting, a number of the car dealerships or car makers, that are manufacturing vehicles have put podcasts in the dashboards now that will play just like your radio station. You hit a button and you can listen to your favorite podcast will download. So that right there is huge. It means that podcasting is going to be exposed to a whole new market that was never available to before. And you can record podcasts anywhere now. So there's some podcasts that I've actually heard of, a few podcasts that record while the host is jogging. I think one of them is called the Runcast or something. And you can hear cars honking and stuff. And he's out of breath while he's running and doing his interview. But that's his kind of catch, which is neat. You can shoot videos now anywhere the selfie sticks aren't banned, concerts or whatever. You can bring your video and shoot your video anywhere too. So I think neither of them are going anywhere anytime soon.
So what's your take on the 10,000 hours? Our coach that says, I want to get started, but when they look at that 10,000 hours, it overwhelms them.
Did you see the video I shot earlier this week?
I haven't got a chance to watch it yet. I know that's what it's about, but I haven't watched it.
I didn't want to bore you if I was repeating what you'd heard, but in case anyone I'm guessing no one's seen it here. So the video I shot was essentially arguing not against the 10,000 hour rule. I know that 10,000 hours you can master something. I get that whole point, but a lot of people get really psyched out looking at that big number because that's a lot of hours. And what I was arguing in that video is you can do a lot with a lot fewer hours than 10,000. So 500 hours, 1,000 hours, you could do a lot. So where I've only been coaching for my third year, I've been podcasting for, I don't know, maybe 15 months or so. I've gotten really good at, say, coaching and podcasting, but I'm nowhere near 10,000 hours between them. I wouldn't know. It's too late to do math. I'll have to get my calculator out. I've worked a lot of hours every day, and I've worked at it daily. So I have put a lot of hours into coaching, but not 10,000 hours just doing quick math in my head. So you could get a lot done with a lot fewer than 10,000 hours. That's a good goal to strive for, but you can work for that down the road. You're going to be alive for a lot of years. You can keep working at it, but don't let the 10,000 hours scare you. So unless you're trying to become a world-class, I don't know, piano player or martial arts or something else like that, you could get very good at something, certainly good enough that you can monetize it and do really well in business. As long as you're not trying to be the top chess player in the world, you're going to do okay.
All right. So we're coming up on our last 5 minutes. What would be your sticking point on just getting started, on taking action, jumping in so that you can build that confidence?
ignore the little voice in your head and also the little voices around you, friends, family, coworkers. So if there's something that you really want to do, just push ahead and do it before those voices have a chance to stop you. Because at the end of the day, it's your life. It's not your friends, your family, coworkers, or old high school friends, people you graduated with or whatever. One of the big problems I think with human beings is that we put way too much stock in what other people think. And first of all, other people aren't even thinking about us as much as we think they are. That's kind of an arrogant way we think that everybody's thinking about us. So I'll give you a really quick example that I read. I read this, who was it? One of the writers in Success Magazine, one of the columnists wrote an article. Do you remember when the whole Anthony Weiner thing was going on in New York with Twitter? He was sending pictures of, you know what, to people in Twitter. He got caught. Huge deal. The whole world was talking about it. With a name like Weiner, of course, it's going to go viral all over the place.
Lots of exposure.
Yeah, exposure. That's right. So this columnist was telling the story how she got into a cab in New York City when the Anthony Weiner thing was at its absolute height, when everybody in the world seemed like they're talking about it. And she was trying to make conversation. I think it was Mel Robbins was a columnist, and she was trying to make conversation with the cab driver. And she said, so what do you think of the Anthony Weiner thing? You know, it's a New York question to ask. You're in New York in the cab. And he said, who? And she said, Anthony Weiner, you know, the politician that was sending his junk all over Twitter, and he got caught. And he said, no, I don't know him. And the point that hammered home to her is this cab driver was thinking more about paying the mortgage. He was thinking about stuff going on in his life, paying the bills. Is his family safe? Other things that are more important than a politician showing his pecker around Twitter, essentially. So it goes to show people, if Anthony Weiner at the height of all this, where it's going viral, and everybody's talking about it, a cab driver in New York City has no clue who Anthony Weiner is, then that's a perfect example that they probably don't care what Mark Mooney's doing or what Jennifer is doing or anybody else.
Either that or they live under a rock.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll share a book I'll leave people with. If you're having trouble with getting hung up with people's thoughts and opinions and their criticism, the best book that I've ever read on it's called Thick Face, Black Heart by Chin-Ning Chu. And that book is amazing for helping you get past what you think other people are thinking about you. And it's an amazing book. It's a cross between Think and Grow Rich, The Art of War, kind of a mix of a few of them. But definitely check out Thick Face, Black Heart.
So where can people get in touch with you? Where's the best place for them to read your content, listen to your podcast, be a part of your groups, and work with you? Give us your links and pages and etc.
Well, I mean, naturalborncoaches.com has the links to everything. So I could give a bunch of different websites and stuff. Naturalborncoaches.com, you'll see that's my central hub. If you're on Facebook, definitely check out the group that we've chatted about. It's called the Coaching Jungle. So if you type in the Coaching Jungle, you'll find it. And we would love to have you in that group. Anyone who's a coach or thinking about becoming a coach, as long as you're not a spammer trying to sell sunglasses and post the Oakley things or whatever, we want to have you in there. So definitely check out the Coaching Jungle too.
Yeah, I'm an advocate of the Coaching Jungle. I really enjoy the group, and I think the members are authentic.
Yeah.
Everybody gives a lot of value. Everybody helps one another. It's a cool group to be
in.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you. Well, we're going to wrap it up. I really thoroughly enjoyed having you. I enjoyed listening, and I appreciate and thank you for coming and chatting with us. I'll definitely get the replay link out as soon as we're done.
Yeah, well, thanks for what you do too, Jennifer, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.